Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming at KVI.com and the KVI app. Coming up today on the most dangerous show on the airwaves, Katie Wilson losing more staff. Is it a sign that people are just bailing on her administration or bailing on her? Also, are we going back to war with Iran? How bad is this going to get? But before we get to any of that, my friends, holy cow, what an overnight in New York. And you wonder how much this has to do with us here. I'm going to tell you. If you tell everybody that somebody is a threat to them, that somebody is a threat to democracy, that somebody is a threat to their person, that somebody is a Nazi, that somebody is a war criminal, are you really surprised when then all of a sudden something really, really bad happens? So for those of you living under a rock, yesterday, a Jewish man was stabbed outside a Jewish center on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. I happen to know this building pretty well because I actually used to teach in that building years and years and years ago. And what happened was this man was coming out of the building. This guy, according to witnesses, yells, "Allahu Akbar," and then stabs him in the chest with a screwdriver. He then also stabs a nearby Asian man. Did he assume he was Jewish too? Or did he just say, well, you're near a synagogue, so that's guilty by association? Now, CNN covered this story. They left out a few things. Tell me if you can figure out what they left out.
In New York, police are investigating whether two stabbings are hate crimes. Officials say a 51-year-old man stabbed an Asian man and a Jewish man multiple times. Police say the attacks happened yesterday afternoon and were completely unprovoked. They say mental health may have been a factor in all this, but a scary situation there. Mental
health may have been a factor. The dude yelled out, "Allahu Akbar." Now, by the way, Allahu Akbar does not mean God is great. Allahu Akbar means my God is better than your God. That's what Allahu Akbar means. Was this a homeless person gone crazy? Or was this somebody who's been radicalized to Islam? We don't know yet. We know the suspect was taken into custody. Now, this is literally 36 hours after Zoran Mamdani's little video. Zoran Mamdani, the jihadi mayor of New York, his video where he says that we should resist Bibi Netanyahu and Israel with every tool available.
While we cannot end the genocide on our own, we can decide whether our silence will become another weapon, and we can examine every tool we have to defend the humanity and dignity of all people. That is my commitment to you.
Every tool that we have, you say. Well, this guy grabbed a screwdriver, stabbed into one man's chest, and stabbed into another man's back in New York. Watching the media try to whitewash this, that's quite a feat to behold, quite a spectacle to watch where they're trying to whitewash this whole thing. Right after Mamdani says this. But you wonder to yourself, does Mamdani regret what he said? Yesterday, Mamdani was scheduled to have a live Twitch stream with Q&A. Twitch is an online video streaming platform which is popular with the gamer types. He canceled it after this event. Why? Because the first question he's going to get asked is, do you regret your comments about Israel? Do you regret your comments about Netanyahu? Do you feel you're responsible for this? Do you feel you have blood in your hands? Any of those questions. If the New York Post is there, he's going to get those questions. If there's anybody from any Jewish outlet there, he's going to get those questions. He might even get those questions from some of the mainstream media. Fox for sure is going to ask those questions. Don't take the fact that he canceled this Twitch stream as a sign that he regrets anything he did. He's got no regrets whatsoever. In fact, he's constantly doubling down on this stuff. He's just waiting for the heat to die down. And he'll switch topics to something else immediately Because Zoran Mamdani knows what President Trump knows. There's no such thing as bad PR. And as long as people are talking about you, they're going to keep talking about you, and you're building name recognition. If you're in the conversation, you're what people are talking about, there's no such thing as bad PR. Look, Michael Jackson sold more albums while he was on trial for child molestation than he did at the height of his actual career. His record sales went up. So Mamdani is not worried about this. Mamdani is not upset about this. And in fact, he's doubling down on all of it. According to the New York Post, Mayor Zoran Mamdani is telling New Yorkers to take to the streets to protest Bibi Netanyahu when he visits New York. Now, I said this was going to happen. I said, watch what's going to happen. He's going to say, because he can't arrest Bibi Netanyahu, oh, we should all go out there and protest. And he's going to be one of the speakers at the protest. Just watch. That's what's going to happen. According to the New York Post, the NYPD is furious that he's doing this because now you are radicalizing all the crazies and telling them you're encouraging them to go protest. So now the NYPD has to deal with a whole bunch of violent, anti-cop, anti-ICE, anti-Jewish protesters that have Hamas tendencies. So now they're mad because they had enough problems during the NBA Finals when you didn't have jihadis and you still had people who are Knicks fans lighting buses on fire and tearing things down. So what do you think's going to happen when you rev up all the psychopaths that were protesting in New York for 2.5 years who are mad because Mamdani didn't keep his promise? So because he didn't keep his promise to arrest Bibi Netanyahu, now they're going to be even more enraged and more prone to violence. Quote, the mayor's activist posturing puts police officers on the street in a terrible position, said NYPD Police Benevolent Association President Patrick Hendry. He said protests against the UN General Assembly are nothing new. But when the mayor of the city is actively calling for demonstrations, violent agitators will assume they have permission to cause as much havoc as possible. Those same agitators know that the NYPD's protest response is already hamstrung by the dangerous lawsuit settlement the city signed over the PBA's opposition. The mayor's heated rhetoric could be enough to push demonstrations over the edge into chaos. There's a group within our lifetime run by a woman named Nardine Kurswami. And you may say, that sounds kind of familiar. Of course it does. She is the lunatic woman wrapped in a keffiyeh who is always out there not calling for end to apartheid or end to occupation, the usual stuff, but literally celebrating Hamas. That's what her group does. When they see Jews in the streets, they assault them. That's what they do. So now you're going to have these psychos outside the UN. You're going to have these lunatics thinking they can do whatever they want because they know Zoran Mamdani agrees with them and is on their side. So they're going to feel like they have a license to destroy, to do whatever they want. And the cops are admitting they cannot keep up with this at all. Zoran Mamdani has blood on his hands. But he realizes, he's going to get a lot of questions about this, and he's going to have a press conference eventually. But in the meantime, let's change the conversation. Let's completely change the conversation. So what does he post on social media? If you have a second home in New York City worth more than $5 million, check your mailbox when you're back in the 5 boroughs because you've got mail. Today, we sent notification letters to property owners, letting them know that our new pied-à-terre tax is coming soon. The best city in the world deserves the best parks, libraries, schools in the world. That's only possible when we all pay our fair share. So you're bragging about your tax that's chasing wealth out of your city. The last time you filmed a video in front of a guy's penthouse that cost $238 million, he said he was canceling his $6 billion construction project in New York and shifting operations to Miami. How much more of this do you want? It is by design. No different than with Starbucks, Amazon, T-Mobile, any of the companies here in Washington. This is by design. He is bragging about this, and he knows the heat he's going to take, but he doesn't care because it keeps him in the conversation. He's going to keep doubling down, tripling down, quadrupling down on all this insanity. He doesn't care if he destroys the greatest city in New York. He doesn't care if he destroys its economy. This is by design. This is by design. There's somebody around here in the office who gives me a hard time, claiming I'm just anti-Islam, anti-Muslim on anything. And I just kind of sit there and smile while this guy says this kind of stuff because he has no idea how I grew up. He has no idea that in the Hoffman home, our two closest friends down the block for me and my brother were two kids named Sajid and Saad. Sajid and Saad were two Muslim kids. You know what we used to love doing together? Playing Nintendo. You know what we used to love doing together? Playing Contra. Up, down, left, right, B, A, select start, the Konami code, which gets you unlimited weapons and 30 lives in Contra. That's what we did. We also love Double Dragon 2. I know some of you are going, I love Double Dragon 2. Still the best game on the original Nintendo. Double Dragon 2, not Double Dragon 1. It was the best one. Well, here's the thing. We did that all the time. And we used to teach them about baseball. And they taught us cricket, which is how I know cricket is a stupid game. But I used to play cricket with my Muslim friends because that was very popular with them. They loved the cricket. And they said, we're going to teach you this game. It's just like the baseball. And I said, this is nothing like the baseball. This is stupid. This is like that game you play in recess, running bases, but you got this big bat thing and you unlimited runs. It's stupid. It's a stupid game. It's very silly. Go watch that movie, $1 Million Arm. You want to learn more about it. It's stupid game. But this is how I spent my childhood. In fact, you want the funnier thing about this? My mom is friends with their mom. Now, kosher is stricter than halal, which is the Muslim version of kosher. So Muslims can go buy kosher symbols for their food. We cannot go buy their symbols for their food. So I can't go up to a halal shawarma place and eat their food, but they could go up to a kosher shawarma place and eat our food and have no problems. My mom and their mom used to discuss kosher food, recipes, what symbols are kosher on packaging. Can you go by this local kosher agency? Can you not go by this? So when that person in the office says, oh, Ari, you're just anti-Muslim, I have no idea what they are talking about. In fact, I know it probably better than a lot of people because I've actually read parts of the Quran. I don't want to tell you that I've read the whole thing, but there are those who are moderate Muslims. There are those who go, we believe in this, and we believe in Allah, and we believe in the prophets, and we believe in this stuff. And then there are some who believe in the most extreme version of that. Now, the most extreme version of that is what I believe Zoran Mamdani is after. Why do I think that? He swore in on a Quran. That's what you swore in on. It wasn't virtue signaling. If you take the Quran literally, it is antithetical to American law. It is antithetical to American values. Some of the things it believes in are government enforcement of Islamic law, legal inequality between Muslims and non-Muslims. In fact, this still exists places in the world where if you are a non-Muslim living in a Muslim country, things ain't so great for you just by discrimination. I love that the left is all in on Hamas and stuff because they believe in the most extreme version of this. Punishments for any type of blasphemy at all. Women have almost zero rights in the most extreme version of this thing. Restrictions on speech. Restrictions on religion. You don't get to be a public official if you're not Muslim. Everything here violates the U.S. Constitution. All of it does. All of this does. And yet, that's what Zoran Mamdani swore in on. It is no different than crossing your fingers behind your back and not actually meaning what you're saying. How can you take your oath to uphold the Constitution on something that is contrary to the Constitution? This is by design. People like Zoran Mamdani, and by that I mean communist jihadis, I don't mean Muslim, I mean communist jihadis, believe that America is evil and we have to destroy it. And they are literally trying to do that. Why else? Why else would you propose economically suicidal plans? Why else would you attack America's greatest ally? Why else would you try to arrange meetings with Iran, who we are in an active state of war with? Why else would you prioritize illegal immigrants over the citizens of this country? Why else would you prioritize crime? Why would you prioritize drug addicts? Because you're actively trying to destroy the greatest city in the U.S., which is New York. You are trying to destroy the center of capitalism because you think capitalism is evil. And you've got all these mini Mamdanis across the U.S., some of them long predated him. You think Shama Sawant's any different? Shama Sawant wanted the exact same thing, to destroy our beautiful Seattle. And she was successful. Minimum wages increases that destroyed businesses, defund the police, tax Amazon. She got everything she wanted. And look what it did to our city. She literally got everything that she wanted. More and more, I am acknowledging that what is happening in New York and what is happening in Washington, what is happening in Olympia, what is happening in Seattle is by design because they truly hate America that much. And that's what we are watching happen. We have the elections coming up. I have my voter's guide available at kvi.com. You can check it out over there if you need some suggestions. But when you look at the races, and I know we have some Democrats listening to this show, those of you who vote blue no matter who, you're not voting blue no matter who. Some of the people who have a D next to their name are not actually Democrats. Zoran Mamdani, admittedly, not a Democrat. Katie Wilson, admittedly, not a Democrat. They are socialists, they are communists, they are Marxists, they are jihadis, and they freely say that. They just know if they have the D next to their name, dumb voters will vote for them. To my moderate Democrat friends, you are not voting for a Democrat if you vote for some of these people. You are voting for somebody who wants to destroy the United States. They admit it. They know that if they have that D next to their name, people will just vote for them. My Democrat friends, if you have some questions about who these people are, feel free to reach out to me. I did an interview with NPR this morning, KUOW. Did an interview with them about my voter's guide. Had a lovely conversation about this aspect of things. As soon as it airs, we'll tell you all about it and send some links to it. I'm happy to discuss these things with anybody, but that's why you have to pay attention to what's in your voter's guide. Because so many of these people are just saying, we want to tear down the United States, we want to tear down capitalism, and you need to see who they are because there's plenty of them here in Washington. Speaking of the socialists who want to destroy our economy, my friends, up next, Katie Wilson is losing staff members left and right from her administration. The next one's a really high-profile one that's leaving. Give you all details when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Another example of her staff bailing on her. So who's leaving this time? Who is this person who's in charge of her communications? This is a person named Sage Wilson. Let me give you a little peek behind the curtain about how things work for a conservative radio host here in Seattle. This started under Bruce Harrell. Jay Inslee's office, when I would email them for comment, they would get back to me. It would be snarky, it would be obnoxious, it would be mean every single time, but they would get back to me. They really, truly did. Bruce Harrell's office, former mayor of Seattle, did something new. If I don't like you, I ain't going to talk to you. If you oppose this administration, I ain't going to talk to you. And they never gave out interviews. And you know what ticked me off even more than that? When Bruce Harrell was running for mayor, I walk into a coffee shop and guess who was there? Bruce Harrell. And he's got a little crowd around him, and I wait and I wait and I wait. And he knows me from beforehand. He does not like me. He knows me from beforehand. And I say, what was it? At the time, no, he wasn't a council member. I just said, Mr. Harrell. That's what I said. I said, Mr. Harrell, Ari Hoffman would love to have you on my show. And he says, come with me. He says, come with me. And we walk outside the Starbucks. And he gets really mad at me about something I had said about him. And I go, okay, I apologize for that, even though I didn't really care. Would you like to come on the show? And he goes, well, you know what happens if I go on the show. They're going to tag me with being conservative because I'm talking to you. And I said, how about right after you get elected? And he said, yeah, well, after we win this thing, I will come on your show. You ever hear an interview between me and Bruce Harrell? He's a liar. He lies. I knew he was lying. I knew that's what would happen. He lied. And he refused to come on the show for 4 years. So what I did was I filed a public disclosure request to see if he had some kind of blacklist. Turns out he did. It's all the names you know, all the people you know, all the people you follow, all the people you listen to. If you're a fan of this show, yep, didn't want to talk to Jonathan Cho, didn't want to talk to a whole bunch of other people just like me. Because then you don't have to be accountable to anybody. And I think that actually hurt Bruce Harrell in the long run. One, he wasn't good at being challenged on anything. He just surrounded himself with yes people. Two, looked like a coward. And three, didn't get his message out to a lot of people. So when he was running for office and he said, I want support from the conservatives, we're like, pound sand. You're trying to sound like Katie Wilson or to beat Katie Wilson ain't going to work for you. Word of caution, by the way, for Adam Smith, who's doing the exact same thing right now. Not very smart. He's probably still going to win this thing, but not a smart move because it's going to cost you a lot of friends. Sage Wilson is the person you email when you want something out of the mayor's office. So I said, you know what? Turn over a new leaf. Let's give it a go. And when Katie Wilson first got elected, I said, all right, I don't like the mayor very much, but let's have a very candid conversation. Let's have her on the show. Email Sage Wilson. Crickets. Nothing. Never got back to me. Never got back to me. Never got back to me on anything. How do I know this is deliberate? Sage Wilson was out of the office for a week a couple months ago, and there was a fill-in. And apparently the fill-in wasn't briefed on the fact that there was a blacklist. So the fill-in was actually answering my emails, had lovely conversations. It was very benign stuff. And then the second Sage Wilson is back, drop the hammer. We're not getting back to anybody anymore. So now Sage Wilson is gone. Now let's be real about Sage Wilson. Sage Wilson's tenure was a disaster. You have Katie Wilson making problem after problem after problem, gaffe after gaffe after gaffe. Because she's terrible at this. Because there's not a lot going on. Not a lot going on, but also they weren't briefed on if you run away from the media, they don't like that very much, especially the mainstream media, which is basically our cheerleading section. So feed them a little something and keep them in the dark and you can keep them happy. But do you remember the kinds of things they have done? The kinds of things they've done where, walking away from Chris Daniels, that's a big no-no, right?
I wouldn't be an excellent reporter if I didn't ask you. It's been an eventful week, and I think people are concerned about you. How do you feel after Tuesday, after what happened, what transpired?
I'm doing great. Got a great team supporting me, and I'll just say, we don't have any indication that that shooting was targeted or anything like that. So I think it's a reminder of how much work we have to do as a city on gun violence, but I'm doing fine.
And the last question would be related to that, I talked to people in that neighborhood who said that, hold on, it's just one last question. People in that community who are concerned that there's been rising gun violence and that there should be more surveillance cameras and that kind of thing. That's obviously been an issue that you weighed in on. Does that change it? Does that change your perspective at all?
Let's keep it on. Yeah, let's keep it on the topic of this event. Thanks.
But does that change your perspective at all on the issue of surveillance cameras based on what you went through on Tuesday?
Yeah.
Appreciate it, but let's keep it on topic, okay?
She's about to answer the question, though. Okay. I mean, it looks worse when you jump in like that.
I'm sorry, I specifically said to keep it on topic today, okay?
But I also have to ask the questions that people want to have answered.
Maybe we can set up a different time for that.
But the mayor's a busy person.
I understand. Maybe we can set up with Sage.
Yeah, we'll talk to Sage.
Well, Sage hasn't returned phone calls all week, so.
Oh, well, hey, Sage. So Sage was also freezing out Chris Daniels. Seems like Sage was freezing out anybody in the media who was willing to ask a real question of the mayor. Was freezing literally all of us out. All of us. That's what Sage was doing, which is mind-boggling for me. This is, is anybody surprised by this? Anybody surprised by this at all? So the one who was the architect of this failed strategy that kept getting Katie Wilson into trouble, the one who was the architect of this is now leaving. So basically, you knew Katie Wilson was stupid. You were using her as a sock puppet. And now that you don't think she's useful anymore, you quit. So Sage is the one who orchestrated this mess. And now Sage is the one who's leaving. Katie Wilson didn't know enough to know who she was hiring at the time. Are things going to get better in the mayor's office? Unlikely. I assume that Mayor Fivehead will still have the blacklist in place because she can't handle the tough questions. We'll test it out. We will test it out. Kevin, next week when I'm in, I don't know what it is. I'll find a question for the mayor's office, something benign, and I'll just see if they get back to me. Something very, very basic. And if they don't, well, that's because they don't want to go on record about anything. They don't want to be challenged on anything. Oh, this is just kind of fun. If it wasn't destroying our city, I'd be having more fun with this. I'd be eating popcorn. But unfortunately, now that the World Cup's over, we see Seattle nature is healing itself. Socialist nature healing itself. The amount of tents I see on the way home every single day just gets infinitely worse. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, usually we don't get good news out of the swamp, but we do start with some good news today. The White House Correspondents' Dinner, where President Trump is supposed to be speaking, is going to be happening tonight. This is take two. You might remember somebody tried to assassinate the president at the last one. So this one's going to be at the Waldorf Astoria. Hey, won't it be nice when you could actually have this thing in the big, beautiful ballroom and not have to trust security to random hotels where you have to buy out the whole thing now? It will be a lot cheaper for the American public as well. President Trump said via White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, in April, President Trump promised to finish the job and plan another White House Correspondents Association dinner. And on Friday, he will deliver on that promise. We look forward to a great and fun evening celebrating 250 years of America greatness and a free press. Now, for me, I kind of wanted to see the speech beforehand. This one seems like it's going to be a little bit more kumbaya. Hey, we're all in the same room. We all survived a near-death thing together. I kind of want to see the fire and brimstone version. Do you think we could have like a Trump after dark, a Trump uncensored? That's like every day with him. But I kind of want to see the draft of that first speech. Maybe I'll reach out to the White House after the White House Correspondents' Dinner and say, hey guys, you giving out the draft of that first speech? I would love to compare them. I would love to compare notes. Those two. Well, you know who's not happy President Trump is in the White House and okay and alive? Nick Brown, Washington Attorney General, who filed another lawsuit against President Trump. What's he mad about this time? Well, let me tell you, my friends, what Nick Brown is mad about. He is mad because I can't. He claims President Trump is jeopardizing counterterrorism funding for Washington. Stop. So, Nick Brown wants us to be a sanctuary state, sanctuary city. Remember I told you when Neil Floyd, U.S. attorney, told us the story about how he set up a mayor with Katie Wilson to see how they could work together, and he got ambushed, and Bob Ferguson showed up, and Nick Brown showed up, and everybody showed up saying how they were going to keep Washington a sanctuary state. So you let terrorists into the state. You let narco terrorists into the state. You let a whole bunch of unvetted Afghan refugees into the state, one of whom drove cross-country and shot 2 National Guards members, killing one of them, by the way. The other one still has serious injuries. You're going to tell me you care about counterterrorism funding? The anti-police party, anti-law enforcement party, cares about anti-terror funding? I don't believe you. The lawsuit challenges FEMA and DHS decisions to impose new requirements on federal funds Congress appropriated to help states prepare for and respond to emergencies and natural disasters, including acts of terrorism. The coalition argues the conditions would coerce states into changing how they conduct elections and into assisting DHS with enforcing federal immigration law. Okay. Now, Nick, I know you went to law school and I didn't go to law school, but, I know enough law to know that federal law trumps local law with regard to immigration law. So if you don't like it, booby, run for higher office and try and change federal law. Oh, God, I shouldn't give him any ideas. I shouldn't give him any ideas at all because that's probably what he's going to do. Don't forget, Nick Brown was a U.S. attorney for half a minute, and then he realized Jay Inslee was retiring, so everybody gets to go up a step. So if Fergie is now running for governor, Nick Brown can now run for attorney general. Who do you think is going to run for governor when Fergie's done? Yes, that's how this goes. The dominoes just keep going because the Republicans don't have their act together enough to find somebody to actually challenge them. Anytime a discussion of who's going to challenge Fergie comes up, you always hear the same things. Ari, you should run for governor. Brandy, you should run for governor. Brian Haywood, you should run for governor. They always throw out the names they know because there's so few political types that they actually know. But in addition to that, we don't have a really big bench here in Washington of politicians. Democrats got these things lined up for the next 50 years. Well, when he retires, you go there, she goes there, you go there, and this is how we all move up the ladder together. Republicans were too busy doing fights about who's more MAGA in a state which Donald Trump only won 7% of. That's what we're busy doing here. So, Nick Brown writes, funding to protect Washingtonians from terrorism should not be subject to politics. Really? So how about the border security? How about the border security? Maybe we should do that. Maybe we should address that. Just a thought? Maybe? Don't tell me you're big on anti-terrorism. Give me a break. You don't do anything about the human trafficking. You don't do anything about the drug dealing. You don't do anything about the hundreds of terrorists that have come over the border through Blaine, Washington. No, you're suing because you want the money for other things. If you were using the money to do counterterrorism, we'd have a lot more police officers. Do you think maybe it's because after the World Cup and things were so successful around here because of our federal partners, they maybe want the money for safety? I can't even finish the sentence. Well, when we talk about who's moving up the ladder, the most recent polling doesn't show Nick Brown is moving up the ladder. No, you know who it shows? Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg and AOC. Pete Buttigieg looks so tough, grew some facial hair, took off the jacket so he doesn't look like he's wearing his dad's suit anymore, but he's out there and refuses to disavow the DSA lunatics because he wants to get elected again. Give a listen.
Another potential 2028 presidential candidate, Rahm Emanuel, has just written an article in the Wall Street
Oh, looks like we lost that one. Okay, hang on. We're going to try that one more time. You're going to need to fix this, Kevin. 1 second here.
'28 presidential candidate Rahm Emanuel has just written an article in the Wall Street Journal entitled "The Bernie Bros Could Spoil Democrats' Midterms." And I'm quoting him now. The DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, and others are saddling the Democratic Party with nominees whose wildly unpopular positions will protect Republicans from having to pay the price of Donald Trump's corruption and economic incompetence. End quote. Do you agree with Rahm Emanuel?
Yeah, I think those of us who are more moderate in the party should concentrate our efforts on talking about what we're for.
Yeah, he's refusing to condemn them. Won't condemn them because he's worried then they won't vote for him. That's not all he's dodging questions on.
And by the way, if he wins, I think we're in good shape. I mean, I think he's so radical. I think he's going to lose, big parts of the west part of the state. We think we can do well in part of the southeast part of the state. I think we'll do well if he, in fact, is the nominee.
I know, Secretary, you've represented working class voters before. Is Rogers' assessment that we just heard about Abdul El-Sayed correct?
Well, I think that Mike Rogers' comments reflect why it's very important for us to have a unified party coming after a primary that's pretty late.
Can't even yes, the terrorist who's running in Michigan can't even condemn that. That's who wants to be president of the United States, my friends. What's it going to be like when there's a terrorist attack? Oh, sorry, I can't condemn that terrorist organization. I want them to vote for me. Insane. Absolutely insane. Up next, my friends, more insane. Apparently, a woman can be sentenced to jail time for throwing out a racial slur. Didn't know that's a crime these days. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, we get to open a lot of our segments today with... Well, we get to start this part of the show off with some good news as well. Love when that kind of happens. So we've been talking a lot about Sophie Cunningham, how she's been standing up for women's sports. And people are giving her a lot of criticism for saying women's sports are for women, not for men. Just protect girls' sports. In fact, I don't even think she said anything about men. I think she just said girls' sports are for girls and said various versions of that. And said, this is what I believe in. And I said she was taking a huge risk. We're really happy she's doing this as a form of bravery because she was launching a new Adidas sneaker. Guess what? It sold out. It sold out. Whoever heard of a women's shoe selling out before? Seriously, when my daughter gets back from her summer program, I was going to say, hey, sweetie, you want me to buy you some sneakers from that Sophie Cunningham lady or a jersey or something? Sold out. Completely sold out, which shows you the online trolls and the bots and everything. They're not the ones who actually buy the sneakers. The people who actually buy the sneakers are the ones who believe in the person. So good on her. Really, really good on her. You know who doesn't believe that girls should be just girls in girls' sports? Pramila Jayapal. Pramila Jayapal was speaking before the Democratic convention a couple weeks ago and said this against the Let's Go Washington initiatives to keep boys out of girls' sports.
Impossible. I was just out there campaigning in Michigan for a candidate that I'm supporting, Abdul El Sayed, and it was electric. I gotta tell you, everywhere we went, it was electric.
Oh, wait a minute. That's her supporting a terrorist. Interchangeable. Girls' sports supporting terrorists. Yeah, at the same convention, she also talked about how she wanted to defeat the Let's Go Washington initiatives because she wanted boys to stay in girls' sports, which is insane, by the way. Here's something else, and I'd love your input on this. This was the first I heard about this. Have you heard the story of Shiloh Hendricks? Shiloh Hendricks was found guilty Thursday of one count of disorderly conduct. Now, apparently, here's what happened. Apparently, and there's video of after, not video of during. She's at the playground with her kids. There's a Somali family nearby with an autistic son. The son, now, is he actually autistic? Don't know. The son goes into her bag and takes an object. She yells at him and allegedly called him the N-word, a racial slur. The father gets mad at her, starts videoing her, and following her around the park. That part of the video is available online. Apparently now, you can get charged for this in Minnesota. Why would I be surprised? Minnesota changed the state flag to the Somali flag, so why would I be surprised? She is now forced to pay a $1,000 fine, complete community service, and had a 90-day suspended sentence, which means you don't have to serve it, but on your record it goes as 90 days in jail. That's insane. Is it right you use the N-word? No. Do we have free speech in this country? Yes. And yet that's what they did, which is crazy, by the way. Absolutely crazy. It's literally a First Amendment issue. This gets appealed to the Supreme Court. You're going to have a 9-0 decision that this gets thrown out. You do. But now let me give you a few other details. The father of the autistic kid, which we don't actually know if the kid's autistic because it's Minneapolis, and we know what's happening in the Somali community. So apparently he didn't call police first. He contacted the Rochester NAACP after the video spread on TikTok 10 days later. The organization then told him to file a police report and ran a fundraiser for him. Which is crazy. Absolutely crazy. So, are you a little bit more suspect of the motivations now after you hear all those details in the case? I am. So, for me, I think it's reprehensible that saying a word like that. I do. But you know what? You have freedom of speech. People call me names all the time. I don't call cops on them. People call me names all the time. I have people who email me daily to call me names. I have people who post things on my social media daily to call me names, hourly, some of them. Some of them are bots. We have a freedom of speech here. We have a First Amendment here. You could say whatever stupid thing you want to say. You can even yell fire in a crowded theater. Her attorney announced that they are going to be appealing this case. But for me, I think this is pretty cut and dry, and I think if something like this actually gets in front of the Supreme Court, it's going to be thrown out because it's literally the government restricting speech. Freedom of speech, you can say whatever you want to whoever you want. Government has no say in that at all. Government cannot restrict your speech. Government shall make no law infringing. We know how the amendment all goes, right? I think this is pretty cut and dry. I think it's ridiculous. Let me know what you think. Give us a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Up next, my friends, your chance to take the trip or keep the cash. Last chance to win that California theme park trip or take home $3,000 in cold hard cash. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Is getting rid of jobs here locally. That's another tech company unloading jobs here in Washington. Why do you think that is? Could it be because they're tired of being penalized? They're tired of being taxed to death? When will the Democrats actually wake up? Well, as we've discussed this week, you have former Governor Gary Locke, you have former Governor Christine Gregoire calling out the Democrats for their out-of-control spending. You have Todd Lewicki, the CEO of the Kraken, who's trying to bring the Sonics here, calling them out for their out-of-control spending. You have Howard Schultz writing an op-ed every other week in the Wall Street Journal, calling out their out-of-control spending. You already have Jeff Bezos long gone. How much more do you need? How much more do you need? But they ain't listening. Because like we said earlier in the show, this is by design. This is the plan. Why? Because they don't like America. They're trying to remake America, but also they're so desperate to hold on to power. Who keeps them in power? Unions keep them in power. So who's actually going to benefit from this tax? I mean, Let's Go Washington released a statement yesterday, and it included a whole legal write-up debunking every single claim the Democrats were making about the income tax. It debunked all of them. For example, it's going to repeal the 9.9% tax on taxable income over $1 million, which we know is just a starting point. It would prohibit state and local governments from imposing future taxes on individual income for everybody. It would leave intact the tax relief provisions passed alongside the income tax. So when the Democrats say, all this tax relief is going away, which they attach to the income tax, it wouldn't do that. It would not repeal Washington's capital gains tax, even though that's what the left is claiming. It would not affect paid family leave and medical leave, Washington Cares long-term care benefits, which was the bankrupt Social Security disaster that Washington tried to create, or unemployment insurance, but that's what the left keeps claiming. I don't know why they're so worried about unemployment insurance all of a sudden. Aren't they literally the ones who are giving it out to every single union that goes on strike? Aren't they the ones that gave billions of dollars of it to Nigerian scammers during COVID? So please, spare me. Spare me. It would not affect any of these. It would not affect the repeal of the B&O tax, the real estate excise tax, estate tax, or any other state excise taxes. But this is what the Democrats continue to claim. So if it's not going to affect all those, who's actually benefiting from the millionaire's tax? Democrats like to say, oh, well, the K through 12 funding for the schools. Yeah, it's not going to affect that at all. We've been paying for K through 12 funding for years now. By the way, not doing so well. Washington Post had a whole write-up about across the country, enrollment is falling off a cliff for public schools. Basically what happened was these teachers, by keeping all the kids out of school for 2 years, parents saw what they were actually teaching their kids, and they said, nope, I don't care if I have to pay more money. I'm yanking my kid out. So who's actually going to benefit from this income tax? According to the Center Square, public sector unions, which will directly benefit from the millionaire's tax, make up virtually all the contributions to the campaign against the initiative to repeal Washington's newly enacted income tax. According to the Public Disclosure Commission, wait, they looked up their records. This isn't some Republican party. This isn't Let's Go Washington. It's according to the Public Disclosure Commission. 3 public sector union contributions made up almost all the contributions to no on 645. So it's not individuals doing this. It is all public sector unions that want your money. Washington Federation of State Employees, responsible for $1 million of donations. So hang on. The guys who get their money from your tax money are using your tax money to tax you more. SEIU 775 Ballot Fund. SEIU Initiative Fund donated $500,000 each. Aside from those 3 donations, some of the smaller contributions have been between $110 and $20. But you're looking at some of the largest public sector unions. Why? They want the government to hire more people so they can get more union dues, so they can expand government. And that way you are paying for it. This is the plan. This is literally the plan. When we got the latest unemployment report out of Washington, what did we find out? we found out that our unemployment is an entire percentage point higher than the national unemployment average. And that the only reason we aren't lower is because of seasonal hiring from the World Cup and because of hiring from the government. The Center Square reached out to these unions, and here was a statement they got back. Defeating I-645 and preserving all accompanying tax cuts for working and middle-class families and small businesses that the millionaire tax funds is the most important thing we could do to make our tax code more fair and avoid deep cuts to public priorities like education and healthcare. The legal document said it doesn't cut any of those things, but keep putting out the lie. This is from Adam Glickman, who's the Secretary-Treasurer of SEIU. We have work to do between now and November to educate voters about the harms I-645 would cause. The harms. Okay, how about the harms of keeping this income tax in place? How many more people do you want to leave? How many more companies do you want to leave? They want everything to be government. They want literally everything to be government controlled. He also refused to do an interview. You know why he refused to do an interview? Because then they're going to ask him tough questions. Like, nothing you said is actually in the bill. Prove what you are saying. That's why he just issues statements. This is the Democrats' new game. As we mentioned earlier with Katie Wilson, you just issue statements. That way they can't ask you any questions. I-645 sponsor and Let's Go Washington founder Brian Haywood told the Center Square that the public sector's union's exclusivity with contributions to defeat the initiative tells you absolutely who's going to benefit from the income tax. He says they're spending big money to protect an income tax. Why is that? Is it because they love children and small puppies and seals? No, it's because they got their hand in the trough. We all know this. Emails obtained by the Center Square show that Senator Jamie Peterson collaborated with the state attorney general's office on crafting the bill with the primary purpose of forcing the state Supreme Court to reconsider prior rulings that make a progressive income tax illegal in Washington state. You know, our Constitution says no income tax, but there's a caveat to that. It says it has to be equal if you impose it on everybody. So what they're trying to do is slide this in the back door. Oh, well, we're going to do it on millionaires. Oh, you're not allowed to do it on millionaires. Oh, we have to do it on everybody? Okay, now it's on everybody. Sorry. Our bad. We really want to tax those millionaires. Now we have to tax everybody. Oh, isn't that a shame? Wop, wop. That's what's going to happen. That's what they're going to do. What are they spending our money on, by the way? And this is mind-blowing. Settlements. $500 million and rising in settlements. Now, it's one thing if somebody slips and falls on the Washington State Capitol grounds because it was icy or something. I understand that. It's another thing where the government just throws money at you because they want something to go away. Seattle's notorious for this. So Seattle allows BLM and Antifa terrorists to take over 6 blocks of Seattle for a month during the Summer of Love, the Autonomous Zone in 2020. What happens? Businesses can't operate. Crime goes through the roof. 6 people are shot. 2 people are killed. Rapes, robberies, vandalism all go through the roof. And after it's over, they get sued by the people who were harmed and the businesses who were harmed in the thing. By my math, I think the city of Seattle has had to pay out so far around $44 million in autonomous zone law firms, including a $30 million settlement to one of the kids, the families of one of the kids who was killed inside the autonomous zone. Black teenager, by the way, because they were fighting racial justice, you know? So they're spending literally $500 million on settlements. Think about what goes on in the schools. Think about that craziness. Oh, there's a pedo teacher in the schools. Let's cover it up. Let's cover it up. Oh, now we got to pay a settlement. Wop, wop. We got caught. Wop, wop. By the way, I filed a bunch of public disclosure requests the other day because rumor has it there's a lot of these cases they aren't telling us about. Found a way to file the public disclosure request. We're going to find out how many more of these pedo predators are inside your kids' schools. But the spending has increased in Washington state 230%. 230% since 2001. Are they ever going to look at cutting anything like, I don't know, $5 million spent on trans surgeries for convicted felons? When I say that, by the way, people don't believe me. There's this crazy Looney Tune on my Facebook page. I don't know who she is. Apparently, she's a real person. Some people told me they actually know who this woman is. And anything I write, she goes, prove it. So the other day, I just had enough. And I forwarded her the documents from the Department of Corrections that they sent me showing how much they spend on the trans surgeries. Oh, she shut up for a little while then, didn't she now? Especially when they're stamped with Department of Corrections on them. Didn't believe me. Didn't believe me either that Washington State is participating in state-sponsored kidnapping, by the way, where if your kid identifies a certain way and wants the surgery, your kid wants an abortion, they can just claim asylum in Washington, and Washington officials will hide the kid from their parents. That case is going before the Supreme Court next year, by the way. In the 2001-2003 biennium, the state operating budget was $24.5 billion, according to data provided by the Office of Financial Management. The spending has increased by $56 billion since then, with spending at $80.7 billion for the 2025-2027 biennium. Adjusted for inflation, the 2001-03 operating budget would now be $46.3 billion. That's half of what they're spending right now. If we're just going by inflation, they can't claim it's inflation. They can't claim it's Trump. They can't claim it's tariffs. They can't claim any of that because just going off of inflation, it would be half of what it is now. Half. It's because they continue spending on stupid. And literally $500 million of that is settlements in Washington because they get sued all the time. And they'd rather just write a check to make it go away. Washington does not have a revenue problem. Washington has a spending problem, but they're about to have a revenue problem. Why? Because so many people are moving out, so much wealth is moving out, and it's only going to get worse. If this income tax actually sticks around, what's going to happen is more people are going to leave. And here's something else. A lot of people aren't even going to come here. If you're applying to be a doctor and you have to match at a certain hospital, you're not even going to put a place like this on your list because why give up your income? You're going to look at the tax-free states. You're going to look at the places where you get some bang for your buck. You're not going to look at Washington State. If you're forming a business, you're not going to look at Washington State. You're going to look for a place where your money goes farther. That's why you have people moving to Florida and Texas and Idaho and getting out of Washington State, as we discussed yesterday. The Seattle Times is trying to convince you, no. People are just leaving King County. They're not leaving Washington State. We pulled up the numbers. 56,000 people left Washington State for other states in 2022, 2023. That was after COVID. I would love to see those numbers now, but unfortunately, you're not going to see them for a couple of years. The Democrats can keep claiming nobody's leaving. Oh, no, pay no attention to that Howard Schultz. Pay no attention to Jeff Bezos. Pay no attention to Starbucks. Starbucks says they're staying. They're staying. They said they were staying. Don't believe what they're saying at all. They are liars. Gigantic liars. Remember, on the initiative, my friends, and I cannot stress this enough, it's going to be on your general election ballot. You have to vote yes to repeal, yes to protect girls' sports, yes for parental rights. It's yes on all of them. Yes on all of them. And that's how we put Washington back together and stop this insanity. I'm just a little worried it's a little too late for the businesses that aren't coming here and that our national reputation has been so ruined by these bad news stories because the Democrats keep doing them that things just ain't going to get better. Looks like Tequila, however, things might be getting better. Up next, my friends, looks like they're actually doing a camping ban, but you know who's big, bad, mad about it? The Seattle Times. Oh, so sad for them. We'll tell you what they're all mad about in the Daily Fish Wrapper when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. So today I'm doing some yard work, and I really need something to clean up some stuff I spilled in the garage. I'm looking for something absorbent, looking for a rag or something. Can't find anything, so I reach into my recycling bin, grab the Seattle Times to try and mop up that junk on the ground, and it's not very absorbent. It's really, really terrible, that Seattle Times, I'll tell you that. Not absorbent at all.
I like your little fan fiction here, but you don't have a subscription to the Times, so you don't have it just laying around.
I know. Who are we kidding here?
Come on.
But while it was covered in the manure that was on my ground, the fertilizer that was on my ground for the landscaping that I was doing, which I wasn't really doing, while it was covered in that, I saw an interesting article. I saw an interesting headline. What did it say? This is the headline. Tukwila becomes the latest Washington city to criminalize sleeping outside. Time out. Is it legal to camp in urban centers? No! Our state has just been looking the other way on it for so long. So have our counties. So have our cities. Criminalize. All they're doing is sleeping outside. I was driving to work today. I saw a dude. This is, I guess, what they'd call a mental health crisis, Kevin. There's a dude who I saw walking down the street and just kicking over Lime bikes. Just kicking him over. Let's just knock him over. Then I saw he picked up one of the scooters. I'm like, that's a strong man. Those suckers are heavy. They're very, very heavy. And he was about to throw it in the street and then threw it to the ground. And I was getting nervous because that guy was on my side. And as I was going by, I'm like, is he geared up for me? Am I going to have to do some evasive maneuvers here? No, just threw it on the ground. What do we call that? A mental health crisis? Is that what we call it? But we're going to criminalize homeless. No, that's not what Tukwila's doing at all. But that's what the Seattle Times says. Tukwila becomes the latest Washington city to join trend on homelessness. A divided city council in Tukwila voted to approve a ban on homelessness in Camas this week, making it the latest city in South King County to criminalize sleeping. All they want to do is sleep on the sidewalk. That's not what it is. What is it actually? They have approved a new ordinance banning camping on city-owned property. So you can't sleep on the steps of City Hall. So you can't sleep on the grounds of public schools. So you can't sleep in parks. You want to go wherever else you want, go wherever else you want. But you can't do that. It passed 4-3, takes effect this coming week. Under the ordinance, violators could face a penalty of up to $1,000 fine, 90 days in jail, or both. City officials say enforcement is intended as a last resort after outreach efforts and referrals to services have been exhausted. So, it's what I call the semisonic plan. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. It's that simple. It's that simple. The other question you should be asking the Seattle Times: why do you want homeless people sleeping on the steps of City Hall? Why do you want homeless people sleeping in the parks? Why do you want homeless people sleeping on the grounds of public schools? And then you have to ask something else. Is this about homeless? How many of these people are actually homeless? Because I thought you guys are all excited in Homeless Lab, your thing that's paid for by your special interest groups in the Homeless Lab. I thought you're all excited about affordable housing. There's tons of empty, affordable housing, and I'm using the giant air quotes, which just mean taxpayer-subsidized drug shelters, drug dens. That's all it is. There's plenty of it. So what do you actually matter? They're demonizing the homeless. The ordinance was requested by Tukwila Police Chief Eric Lund, who said the proposal has been under development for approximately 3 years. 3 years. Lund said city leaders moved forward following the U.S. Supreme Court's 2024 decision in the city of Grants Pass versus Johnson. That's the one which helped out Burien. Do you remember Burien had to detour their July 4th parade? It went out of the way. It was a zigzag. It went around a block when it was supposed to be a straight shot because there was a homeless encampment in the way. That's how bad it got. And Burien said, okay, we're going to pass a similar law, which is you can't camp in public areas that are owned by the city. And the left went bonkers crazy. And then the King County said they're not going to enforce it. Dale Constantine was King County executive. Unfortunately, the dumb people of King County said, we don't want to vote on our sheriff anymore. You appoint him, Dale Constantine. You've done such a good job and everything else. He appoints a hack like Patty Cole Tyndall, who says, We know we're your police department. We're not going to enforce the law, actually. This had to go to the Supreme Court. Luckily, Burien was part of the case. They weren't the main case, but they were part of the case. And the Supreme Court ruled, yeah, you can make laws that say people can't camp here. So Tukwila wants to do the exact same thing. Tukwila wanted to do the exact same thing. Now, it's a little bit stricter than Burien's. Burien's was more, here's the steps we have to go through. And that's not so much formalized inside the Tukwila one, which is basically, here's the punishment. We'll be nice along the way, but here's the actual punishment that's at the end of the rainbow. But apparently, Seattle Times, they're criminalizing the homeless. You know what? It may not be such a bad idea. Maybe we need to criminalize it a little bit because do you know that Seattle police are investigating, according to Como News, after a decomposed body was found Thursday afternoon in the city's Little Brook Creek natural area. Officers were called around 2:30 p.m. to 35th Avenue Northeast and Northeast 33rd Place after a person walking in the Lake City neighborhood reported smelling something that led to a body in the woods. Okay, I got an embarrassing story. We were cleaning out my freezer a few months back, and the kids were home, and the kids were helping us. So we said, take all this stuff into the kitchen freezer from the garage freezer. A few weeks later, there is this rank smell in the garage. And I'm like, did something die in the walls? It was putrid. It was disgusting. We opened the doors. I had to take my car and put air fresheners in my car. It was rank. Rank.
Can I get a guess?
You get a guess.
Someone pulled out some meat of some sort while they were taking the stuff into the kitchen and left one sitting out somewhere.
It fell into one of those bags, tote bags you take with yourself to the grocery store so you don't have to pay for their thing.
Uh-huh.
It was a package of hamburgers.
Oh.
So what happened? My wife eventually found it, and it was crawling with maggots. And, but the whole garage, it was getting to the point where my bedroom's above my garage, and you're starting to be like, is it going to leak in? It was that bad. That bad. How bad does it have to be for outside that you smell this thing decomposing?
Okay, so this was in Lake City Way? Is that what you said?
This was in the Lake City neighborhood.
Neighborhood, okay.
Neighborhood. Yeah.
Do you have any, I'm trying to, because I live in Pinehurst, which is just up the hill.
35th Avenue Northeast and Northeast 33rd Place, Little Brook Creek natural area.
Huh.
That's where it says it was. I was going to say, isn't this your stomping grounds over there? They said the body appeared to have been at the location for some time. Mm-hmm. You think. Okay. The deceased is not a child, they said. And they said the body was not found near an encampment, which is, they're already saying, oh, what are we going to say? Okay. Was somebody murdered? Is somebody missing? I haven't seen any missing people reports in a while. Is it somebody who overdosed? Or is it somebody who's starting a new encampment? Or do we have mafia members dropping people in green spaces in Lake City?
Or did someone, this is all, obviously, what a game to play here that we're playing, but did someone go and decide to take their own life out in the woods somewhere?
Could be any of these things. What is the most likely thing it actually is? Survey says, homeless drug addict, Alex. Wait, Alex doesn't do the surveys. Oh, wait, how much worse could this get? Here we go. This one from Olympia, from the jungle. You know that big homeless encampment that they don't do anything about? A man who was on community supervision for a prior stabbing conviction is accused of brutally attacking a woman with a propane tank inside the jungle, leaving her with a severe head wound before later barricading himself inside an apartment and allegedly setting fires as SWAT officers closed in. We're just criminalizing the unhoused. We're criminalizing the homeless. That's what we're doing, criminalizing the homeless. Insane. Absolutely insane that this is what the new narrative is, my friends. Up next, crazy true crime stories happening here in Washington that don't involve propane tanks. Give you all the details when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, now that the World Cup's over, I actually got a text from a friend of mine who said, Ari, is crime coming back to the city? Because I don't see it so much on the light rail. And the truth is we haven't seen a lot of it on the light rail because they've actually been allocating more security to the light rail. Oh, gee, who'd have thunk it? If there's more enforcement and more security on the light rail, you have less problems on the light rail. By the way, bad news for people who like the light rail this weekend. They're going to be doing routine maintenance. So the 2 line is down, which means you can't go across Lake Washington at all. So the whole purpose of having this thing going to be down. Can't do this in off hours. We got to do it on the weekend when, people are in town to enjoy the weather and enjoy all the tourist sites. So, yeah, another opportunity for the light rail to be down. But now, as much as the local lamestream media covered the World Cup, absolutely loved it because they didn't have to cover crime anymore. Now we can hear about all the crime they weren't covering while the World Cup was going on. According to Como News, investigators have narrowed their search for a suspect after a shooting in North Seattle left one woman with multiple gunshot wounds and 2 others hurt by flying glass. I saw all these reports that last month, apparently, Seattle didn't have a single homicide. Nice. Wonderful. I think it's dumb luck. Not for lack of trying. There were tons of shootings, tons of stabbings, but nobody died, thank God. Officers were called to reports of gunfire at about 12:06 a.m. in the 1100 block of North 96th Street, where they found an abandoned silver Ford riddled with bullet holes. Quote, one of the biggest things is that we have the proactive patrols out last night, said Seattle Police Deputy Chief Andre Siles. Those police officers were within blocks. They responded in about a minute or so. Wait, so you're saying actually having police officers on the streets helps address crime? Helps solve? What a novel concept! Wait, you mean that actually works? A short time later, police learned that 3 wounded women had walked into UW Medical Center Northwest. Police said 1 woman had several gunshot wounds, while the other 2 were hurt by shattered glass. All 3 victims are stable. Medics later transferred the woman who was shot to Harborview Medical Center for further treatment. Detectives said the women were inside the Ford, facing west on North 96th Street, when a dark-colored sedan pulled up in front of them. Suspect got out of the vehicle, shot at the Ford before getting back in and driving south on Aurora Avenue. Investigators say the city's network of surveillance cameras captured images of the suspect's vehicle, and detectives believe they have narrowed down the identity of the suspected shooter. Wait a minute. There's too many things. I thought police are bad. I thought if you have too many police officers, that's bad. You're telling me it's actually not bad and they can actually get to crimes faster? Wait. I was told those cameras were super bad too. That we shouldn't have those cameras on because they don't help address crime. They don't help investigate. No, they're super bad because ICE, because Trump, because whatever. But that's how they're finding their suspect? Seattle Police Gun Violence Reduction Unit detectives are leading the investigation, trying to determine what led up to the shooting. It is unclear if the victims were specifically targeted or were randomly attacked. I don't know what's unclear about that. Once you find out who the suspect is, that's going to become pretty clear. Do you know this guy or not? Did you cut him off or not? Is he just a lunatic or not? Is he a prolific offender? Is he a drug dealer? Is it a drug deal gone bad? Who knows? Could be anything. Now, where did this happen? This is just weeks after you had a whole bunch of public safety concerns in North Seattle. Why? Because you had literal gang fights in the middle of residential neighborhoods in the middle of the night. So what happened? The residents said, we're not going to take this anymore, screamed and yelled, and Seattle said, we're going to solve this. We're going to solve this. We're going to put out concrete barriers to slow down traffic. So you're going to put out speed bumps? Well done. You're going to put out, some things people have to drive around? Yeah, that ought to do it. Sounds like it's working really, really well, by the way. Looks really like it's really, really working out well. I don't think the barriers are working out well. I think having more cops on the streets, and I think having the surveillance cameras active, that's what's actually working out well. And mind you, what are the kind of crimes that Democrats have no problem emboldening in North Seattle? According to Como News, a preliminary review by Seattle's Office of Inspector General found the Seattle Police Department has largely carried out the city's revised prostitution enforcement strategy as intended, focusing arrests on sex buyers and traffickers while avoiding arrests of people selling sex. Okay, it's still illegal, but okay, at least you're cutting back on it. As long as the product is being offered, there are sickos who are going to buy it. The report examined enforcement of Seattle's 2024 Stay Out of Area Prostitution Ordinance from October 1st, 2024 through March 31st, 2026. It concluded that police enforcement aligned with the intent of the SOAP ordinance by targeting buyers and traffickers while emphasizing diversion in services for commercially sexually exploited people. So, wait a second. I thought Erica Evans and Katie Wilson and crew all ran on not doing this because it's super, super bad. Oh, you mean Ann Davidson was right? And this is actually what you should be doing, and it's actually working? According to the review, Seattle police arrested 65 buyers, 9 traffickers during the reporting period while issuing 26 SOAP area restriction orders. Well, this sounds like it's a little bit more effective than those dumb letters they used to send people in the mail. Your car was cited in this area. It's an area known for prostitution. Don't go there again. Sounds like actually having police enforce the law might be just a tad more effective. Just a little bit more effective. The report examined enforcement of Seattle's prostitution loitering laws, as well as related offenses involving promoting prostitution to provide what the Inspector General described as a broader picture of enforcement. So you mean actually enforcing the law is actually working? From October 2024 through March 2026, officers responded 257 prostitution-related calls, logged 122 officer-initiated observations of suspected prostitution activity. Since 2019, 91% of prostitution-related computer-aided dispatch events occurred in Northgate, Bitter Lake, and Greenwood neighborhoods along Aurora Avenue North. Shock, shock. There's prostitution on Aurora Avenue. This has been going on since 2019, and nobody's really done anything meaningful about it. Well, guess what? When you actually enforce the law, you get big arrests. You get big convictions. Like this from our friend Katie Daviscourt over at the Post Millennial. A Seattle pimp has been sentenced to 20 years in federal prison for sex trafficking adult and minor victims on Aurora Avenue. Shantae Brody used violence and intimidation to coerce his victims into prostitution. He targeted vulnerable women and children on various social media platforms, brought them to Seattle from other states and countries. Now you're dealing with big boy time. That's federal time. He was sentenced by a U.S. District Court judge. He called a 20-year prison term the violence of events in this case, saying he deserved it. He asked for 15 years of supervised release upon the completion of the prison term, arguing that Brody is a violent man and a sexual predator who targets vulnerable young girls. So you're saying enforcing the law actually works. This has been going on since 2023, this case here, by the way, which is when they actually caught this guy. They caught him, released him, caught him, released him. And then guess what? Finally, in 2024, they did something new about this. So now this guy's going to see the inside of a jail cell for 20 years. It's about flipping time. So you mean actually enforcing the law works? I'm so surprised. So surprised. You know what I'm not surprised by? Jay Inslee is online talking about climate change. And as usual, he makes himself look like a Dumas. By that, I mean a dumbass. We'll tell you all about what he said and what he posted when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Governor Jay Inslee seems to be very, very bored in Idaho. Very bored. Where all he does is go on progressive news outlets talking about climate change and post about climate change on social media. Trudy must be losing her mind because she wants to kick him out of the house. So Jay Inslee posts this on social media. It's a guide for states to affordable, clean, reliable American energy from a group called Evergreen Collaborative. And Jay Inslee posts this. Let's be clear. States have tremendous power in providing Americans cheaper, cleaner energy. Check out the rich menu of options states have within reach. And he puts up this guide. Our friend Todd Myers from the Washington Policy Center retweeted Jay Inslee, which is how this caught my attention. And it said, the fact that Jay Inslee shared this report is glorious. It highlights many examples from several states of policies he claims provide cleaner, cheaper energy. But there isn't a single highlighted example of success from Washington, where Governor Jay Inslee was the governor for 12 years. So, you're Captain Planet. You're the climate avenger. And yet not a single one of the things you've spent our money on has actually worked. Well, let's not forget, Jay Inslee had this whole thing to hold him accountable, this whole website. And then as soon as he realized the numbers were getting worse, they took down the website. You know that Washington's climate emissions have gotten worse since he imposed all this stupidity? But if we tax him enough, let's just tax him enough and then we'll be good, right? Oh, Jay. If he's in Idaho, I feel bad for Idaho. I really, really do. Can we get a hold of his tax returns to see where he filed this year? I'm really kind of curious. I mean, I assume Jay Inslee doesn't want to be hit with that income tax here in Washington. I assume he doesn't want to be hit with any of the things he passed, right? Jay Inslee re-domiciled in Idaho. Do we know that for sure? Okay, I'm going to put this out here. If you can actually prove that Jay Inslee moved to Idaho, don't go to his house. Don't stalk him. But if you have the paperwork proving it, I will feature you on the show. Just email to ari@kvi.com. That's ari@kvi.com. I love that he's like, no. I have a friend who says he knows for sure because he's working on a house nearby in Idaho. He even knows which neighborhood. And I'm like, prove it, dude. And he still hasn't given me the proof. If you can prove Jay Inslee moved to Idaho, we're going to love that. We're going to laugh a lot. Also, at the same time, you'll burn Nick Brown's communications director, who is Jay Inslee's communications director, who told us that Jay Inslee wasn't moving to Idaho, that it was a right-wing conspiracy. So if you want to help debunk that guy, and you can actually, no pictures, don't go stalking the man. Don't do that. That's illegal. We don't want that. Don't do that. But if you have the paperwork proving it, like, for example, tax records or tax ownership or whatever it is, you just let us know. Anywho, switching gears here, Washington State Department of Health has confirmed it failed to ensure an activist group was not misusing the agency's official logo after it received nearly $500,000 in a Climate Commitment Act to produce videos and other promotional material critical of Yakima farmers. Now, you may think to yourself, who cares if they're misusing a logo? Okay? If you slap a KVI logo on something and then have a quote from me, people are going to think it's real. People are going to think it's official. So what happened was this activist group is now using it to apply for Climate Commitment Act funds, grifter funds, and they're being critical of Yakima farmers. Wait a minute, I thought we loved farmers. I thought we loved the working class. I thought the communists loved those guys. Quote, DOH takes the integrity of our official branding, contractual compliance, and the appropriate use of public funds seriously. We acknowledge that a gap occurred, resulting in an incomplete removal of the logo from videos across social media platforms, and we are actively working to correct that gap. It said the issue began when a farming advocacy group called Save Family Farming filed a complaint about the use of the DOH logo, We Are Ella, promotional materials last summer, but received no response from the agencies for months. Not only are they putting out false, misleading information to the general public, they're also very willing, apparently, to directly lie to a state agency and mislead them regarding what action has been taken. This is kind of, these are the quotes given to the Center Square. And one video, according to the outlet, Maria Fernandez, director of Ella, speaks about her father, who was a farm worker who passed away from cancer at 45. She believes exposure to pesticides was to blame. Quote, if you care about the water you drink, the air you breathe, you should be concerned, she said in a documentary produced by the group. The documentary interviews farm workers and residents about the health effects of pesticide exposure, nitrate pollution in groundwater, and air pollution from industrial-scale agriculture. The money for the documentary came from a $500,000 Climate Commitment Act grant administered under the Healthy Environment for All. How does funding a video help the climate? Anybody want to tell me how $500,000 you can't get some kid on a cell phone to film this for you for a fraction of the price? The HEAL Act was passed in 2021. Requires several Washington agencies to identify and address environmental health disparities in overburdened communities and for vulnerable populations. I don't even know what that means. The complaint stemmed from We Are Ella using a DOH logo over some of the materials it pushed on social media platforms, which gave the appearance the state was endorsing their messaging. The group did not have permission to use the logo. The group did not respond to requests for comment from the Center Square. Earlier this year, Safe Family Farming received a response to its complaint from DOH, indicating the agency had ensured Ella was no longer using their logo. How'd they get away with it for so long? How'd they get away with it for so long? Probably looking the other way because you don't want to deal with this. Pressing further this month and asking state lawmakers to apply some pressure for answers, SFF finally received a response from DOH, which the agency took the word of We Are Ella that the organization had removed the logo without ever ensuring they actually did. As of Thursday, videos produced by the group are still online with the DOH logo being used. So they can say all they want that they're cutting back on this, but you have a far-left radical organization using official logos to make it look like it's paid for by Washington, to make it look like it's official and getting grants to promote their propaganda. I didn't see any other media outlet cover this. Kudos to Carlene Johnson, our friends over the Center Square, for breaking this, but it just goes to show you. The state officials look the other way when the activists do stuff. If a Trump organization took their logo and using it, how long do you think it would be till they would shut it down? If I took their logo and started using it, how long do you think it would be until it got shut down? When I put my articles at KVI, Zach has to check all my images and find out where they came from just to make sure we're not doing copyright infringement. Oh, and by the way, use of logos pops up in Google Analytics that we know these agencies have that alert them anytime their logo is being used, anytime their name is being used. This stuff pops up all the time. I get a release every single day of the time my name and logos and stuff are used. For sure they have that stuff because whenever we do public disclosure requests, they always send us all their emails on various topics. What were they looking for? Their logo being used, their name being used. So it's really they want to look the other way because the activists were doing it. Lots more to discuss as our show continues, my friends, including how Zoran Mamdani has blood on his hands for a hate crime in New York City. Give you all the details when we come back. You're listening to the